Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Megan, and my amazing co host is.
Hey, I'm Amanda.
Hello there. We are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool advice and community. And today we are getting perhaps a bit messier than usual and probably a bit fired up. I did listen to the Les Miserables soundtrack today while I was working on some other stuff. And the last time I did that before we recorded, it was fiery. But anyway, we have a great topic for you today. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I think it will be. So we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, we want to officially welcome you to our secular and progressive space. Look, in the homeschool world, that's like finding a needle in a haystack, maybe like finding a needle in 10 haystacks. Though I will say, I was just doing some research on that, and the estimates that I found have liberal homeschoolers in the US at like a million people, maybe up to 1.5 million. And so know that you're not alone. Now, that said, I know firsthand how much it might seem like it when you're out there in the real world looking for them, right? Like, where are you? Especially if you're a blue dot in a sea of red, finding the people that you can like just hang out with and without having to like constantly fix your face. It's just nice, right? It's really
Mhm.
nice.
I've always said there's more of us than we realize, but the problem is we don't coagulate at church the way the religious
Yeah.
homeschoolers do. They have a watering hole and we don't. So
Yeah.
it's harder to find your people. But we had one of our live Patreon meetings the other day, and it felt so good to be among like-minded people who are kind, who are willingly offering support, who don't judge. Like, it's good. It was awesome. I had such a good time.
Yeah. No, that's it. It is. It's so important. I feel like it's more important than ever. It's always been important to find people that you gelled with and you could just have that space and create that space with, but it feels extra urgent right now.
Mhm.
Okay, so just in case we have left you with any doubt as to whether or not this is the inclusive and safe space for you, let's be super clear. We believe that Black Lives Matter, that women's rights and trans rights are human rights, that agreeing to disagree is fine if you're discussing something like whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza, but definitely not when it comes to human rights. No human being can be illegal on stolen land. And quite frankly, you don't get to pretend you care about what's legal and illegal when you gleefully voted for a convicted felon.
Yeah. Boom. You feel better? You got that off your chest? It feels good, doesn't it?
I mean, I will say in general, I'm feeling more mellow today.
Mm.
And really mellow means tired because I have chronic illness and that's like a whole other thing, right? But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
you should listen to the Les Mis soundtrack, it'll get you fired back up. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I need to mellow just a little because, like you can only rev your engine at the highest RPM so long before you burn out the engine. I feel like we've kind of reached that point and now it's time to like throttle down a little. But okay. So
Mhm.
anyway, let's do this. Today, we are going to be discussing invisible labor. You probably know a fair amount about it. I think if you are on social media at all in any way, shape, or form, but especially on Instagram and TikTok, there are so many great videos about it. So if you listen to us and you're like, I still don't fully get what they're talking about because you haven't, like, go down that rabbit hole for a bit and watch some of the really great videos that are out there. But in general, the term invisible labor is relatively new. The concept does go back to the 20th century when Charlotte Perkins Gilman framed domestic labor as being economically erased. Or again, in the 1970s when Sylvia, I'm going to go with Federici, but I don't actually know. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. But she and others, right, helped popularize this idea that unpaid domestic labor sustains capitalism, but also equally goes essentially completely unrecognized. For us, I feel like homeschooling kind of supersizes these ideas, just the idea of domestic labor, and then add in the homeschooling piece, and it just kind of blows up. So, like, yeah, it's not just double. So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's what we're going to be digging into today.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, it's way more. And you should know that if you're thinking about homeschooling, it's way more. So we just you should at least go into it eyes wide open. I mean, we love homeschooling, wouldn't trade it, but you should know that it's gonna up that. Okay. But first, we kick off all of our episodes with a weekly recap. It's part of our anti-influencer vibe around here. We keep it real. We both love homeschooling. We love hanging with our kids. We love being with our kids. But some weeks are hard. And sometimes you're like, when is this week going to end? And we'll always tell you that so that number one, you realize it's not just you. And number two, if you're new to homeschooling, again, you're like, okay, they told me this might happen. Okay, right? So we're good. So how's your week been, Amanda?
You know, my week has been good. It's been fine. Okay. I realized this week that I really missed my calling. I should be like a retired Italian grandma who mostly just hangs out cooking really complicated home cooked food for anyone who
Ooh.
wants to enjoy it to come around and enjoy it. Because, it's that thing. I hate having to cook on the regular basis for my family.
Hate it
There's a talk about invisible labor. There's all of those videos on social media. It's like, why do I have to feed these people every day? And when you're
every day.
homeschooling, you have to make sure that there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And even if you're not the one cooking it, in my house anyway, and it's true, I don't cook all of the meals, but I do have to make sure that we have the ingredients for all of
Uh-huh.
the meals. And I'm in charge of making sure that there's enough lunch supplies and there's breakfast that everyone's going to want. And all of that falls on me. And there's kind of like but there's no food and like a blank look at me if I haven't provided it. And I hate that part.
Uh-huh.
That said, I do love cooking just for the sake of cooking. And I love really complicated recipes, or maybe even just like a simple recipe, but it takes a long time to pull together. Like up until this past week, one of my favorite things to make is fresh ratatouille, where you just sit and like dice all the vegetables and you spend forever like cooking them. And then you eat it on like fresh ciabatta rolls, like warm from the oven. Like, I love that. My family is like, why did you spend 4 hours making that? Like, we don't even really love a fully vegetarian meal. This week, I discovered that I feel much the same way about making ragu from scratch, like Northern Italy style, but also, again, like another 6, 7 hour project of just cooking. And I really like that my life just doesn't really allow for me to dedicate that many hours on the regular to one part of the meal. like, enjoy this meat sauce with pasta. Don't worry about vegetables. There are some carrots in there. It'll be fine. I, I did have an interesting experience this morning, though. I woke up and I was just not feeling it. You know how some mornings you wake up and you're like, oh, I cannot do today. I was like, this is not going to work because today was supposed to be, it has been a really busy homeschool day for us.
Mm.
And then I knew that I had some other things I had to take care of. And I had some stuff I needed to do for the podcast and for my other part time job. And I knew that I needed to get on here to record. And I was like, I can't do that with this attitude. So I did that whole, like, we're just going to fake it until we make it, like you pretend like you're in a good mood and you put it all together and hopefully you'll be there. My kiddo slept in really bad this morning. By the time he got up, he was super grumpy. And I was like, okay, come on, let's go. Like, are you full of vim and vigor? And he's always like, no, I'm not at all, and like, and we're sitting doing work. And he's like, would you stop it? Why are you so cheerful? You're ruining my vibe. I'm trying to be grumpy here. And you're so cheerful that you're making me cheerful. And I was like,
You're like, I'm faking it till I make it.
yeah, and you could too. And so like he does a little bit more and finally he's like, all right, I give up. I'm in a good mood. It is what it is. And then he was proofreading something for me. And then he's like, so are you really thinking about starting your romantasy book sometime soon? And I was like, yeah, I am. I really do want to. I have a notebook with chapter ideas and I had started sketching it out. I just haven't actually written it all out. Like you have to turn the outline into more than just an outline. And then he like starts going off on this tangent asking me all of these questions and I'm answering. And then I realize that he's doing the exact thing that we talked about in last week's episode. We're like, we have so much to do and we need to focus. And he's gone off on this tangent. He was distracting me 100% on purpose to try to avoid having to do his math lesson. And, it's like, wait a minute. As much as I love to pretend like you were just solely interested in my life and what I'm going to be doing with a potential book, you do not get to distract me from school. Like, let me put my teacher hat back on. Nice try. Let's focus. So, yeah, but truly, generally things have been good. And I'm not going to look that gift horse in the mouth. Like,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. So, yeah.
That's good.
I think it's maybe not quite so exciting and positive on your end, but things are getting a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I mentioned in last week's episode that I had a really, really rough patch. And so I've been focusing on, really back to basics, like hydration. That's where we're at right now because it was such a rough period. Yeah. So really back to basics. Like I'm behind on everything. I'm behind on emails. I'm behind on bills. Not like behind on bills. They're within the billing cycle, but normally I would have paid them like right when they came in kind of thing. So like, okay, so I'm just kind of doing that kind of stuff. I finished the unit study today. My next section before I pass it back to Amanda, our March unit study that is all about First Amendment and Freedom of Information Act. And it was so funny because it's a really, really meaty unit study. And when I sent it to Amanda, I was like, sorry. Every time I send it back, it gets bigger. But it was hilarious because it took me a long time. But because I'm focusing on hydration, I kept having to get up to go to the bathroom while I was working on it. And it was hilarious because every time I got up, the dog would be in the hallway with a ball in her mouth being like, now, are you done? Are you done? And I was like, no, I'm still not done. I'm sorry. Like,
sorry, girlfriend.
Yeah. So right before we recorded, we went out for a pretty hefty WALK to make up for the fact that I ignored her while working on the unit study today too much. But yeah. So I have managed to squeak in a little bit of sewing time and cross stitching and just a little bit of me time. I joined a local crafty group here that gets together multiple times throughout the week and everybody just brings their knitting and their cross stitch and their embroidery or whatever. And if it's at somebody's house, there's snacks or wine or whatever. And everybody just sits and I just like, we've been here for over a year and like I was so focused on getting my kids all sorted that like I knew no one, and so
Yeah.
I was like, I should really probably start getting out and building a life for myself here. That would be the healthy thing to do. So I've been working on that. I registered my oldest for camp. If you're an unschooler, not back to school camp for teenagers, totally amazing. There's a session in Oregon and a session in Vermont. I don't get anything for telling you about it. So I registered my oldest. I put the insurance on it in case things get worse in the United States. And I don't feel like sending my very brown child through customs and immigration in the United States, but he's registered. So there's that. I started reading the Alice Network, which I'm excited about because my last book was The Huntress and it was so good. So one of my book club students was like, you should read the Alice Network next then. So I started that. And my residency card finally arrived, which took freaking forever. So I'm like, oh, like it's just like one of those like sigh of relief situations because it's basically approved before you get your visa. It's kind of a formality. I think part of it, the formality process is so that they can charge you 180 euro when you go for that appointment. But there's still that thing until it's in my hands. So,
oh, no. Yeah. It's like such a relief to finally have that card in your hands.
And our visas are over a month expired, which we're legal to be in Portugal on an expired visa as long as your residency is in process. There's a paper that they give you that's like you're legal even though your visa's expired, but you can't leave the EU and come back in. So you really need that residency card or else you're like a little bit trapped. So just in case anything happens and, you need to be able to family emergency or something like whatever. So I'm good. Yeah. I'm waiting for the kids still, but it's progress. It's like the kids are really a formality once mine is done because they're attached to me. So, right. Like,
yeah. You all went through the process together and they wouldn't. Yeah,
exactly.
They wouldn't
right.
Be like my 14-year-old, but you need to send your kids home.
Yeah. Your 14-year-old can't stay with you. Right. So yeah. So I'm trying to get back on track. I'm still super tired from everything that I've had going on and whatever, but I'm focusing, like I said, one foot in front of the other, as much as it's like water and 3 meals and just like the basics. So we're getting there. But yeah, back to our topic for the day. So it's interesting. I saw something on Instagram not that long ago about breaking generational curses around resting. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was something to the effect of how women feel like they've been caught resting. Like if somebody comes in and they're sitting on the couch, doom scrolling or reading a book or whatever, and that so many women have this urge to hop up and do something productive because they've been caught resting. And it's really interesting because we all have chores, or the kids have chores. I mean, I do too. It's life. We all have stuff that we're responsible to get done. And so it's interesting because we were talking in book club not that long ago about gender roles and like inadvertent ways that we pass gender roles on. And it was really, really funny because my daughter's chore is kitchen. So she's regularly emptying the dishwasher, loading the dishwasher, wiping the counters. That's her job. My boys have other jobs, laundry, trash, whatever, like all this stuff. It was so interesting. The other day I was in the kitchen and I was just waiting for something to finish cooking so that I could do the next step. And my son started clearing stuff off the table that didn't live on the table. It was the salt shaker that needed to go back on the little shelf it lives on and stuff like that. He was just clearing space on the table. And I had this moment of like, oh, the table's not clean. I can't believe I didn't clean it. Like,
Mm.
and it was so interesting because I'm like, my daughter cleans the kitchen all the time. The second he went to clean the kitchen, it was like I hadn't cleaned the kitchen
Mm.
or something. It was so interesting because
Mm.
my dad is not like that and my husband's not like that. So it's not like a learned behavior. Even my grandfather wasn't like that. If anything, my dad is like, sit, I'll take care of it. You prepared the meal. I'll clean up the meal.
Mm.
So not the type of men that I was raised around, but it was so interesting the way it hit me where I felt like I was delinquent in not having cleaned the table once he started doing it. And he's 18. I think if we hadn't necessarily just discussed it in book club, it wouldn't have come up, but it was
Yeah.
really, really interesting. So anyway, I have noticed I do it, right? I will totally feel guilty if I've been resting. And my husband is not the type to give me a hard time about that. It's a me thing, but I've noticed it. I've been working on it, like that it's okay to rest. I don't need to earn my rest because the reality is I have taken on a freaking lot. We have our jam, me and you, Amanda. I have 3 kids. My husband works overseas, so he's not even here that much. One of my kids has a service dog who likes to play ball with me every time I stand up, keeping the house and groceries, paying the bills, getting all the kids' stuff sorted out. It's a lot. So, I mean, I can really only identify with how that feels societally speaking or culturally speaking as a woman. But I would assume if you're a single parent or the primary parent, that a lot of those feelings might be similar, even if you don't identify as a woman, and that you can probably relate on a whole bunch of levels. I mean, you're juggling your kids' needs, their activities, their education, their social lives, their emotional well-being, which in the teenage years, holy crap, people. Like if you're listening and you have a 6-year-old and you're like, man, I'm tired. I do not mean to be the bearer of bad news, but whew, okay. And then possibly you're taking care of your home, pets, overseeing medical issues. I mean, we all need a dentist appointment and it's like, oh, it's just one more thing. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's it, right? There was, I think maybe it was the speech professor who just did a video on it, but it was about basically the invisible load and labor that women specifically do, but that's because that's kind of his thing. He does a lot around feminism and stuff like that. And it was obviously some guy on a podcast who's like, "Blah, blah, 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 let me talk out of my ass some more." And the speech professor was like, okay, let's have a real honest conversation. What's the name of your child's pediatrician?
Yes.
And not the practice, but the actual pediatrician. And do you have their number just saved? And what's the name of this? And what is that field trip slip for on Thursday? And what breakfast foods do you have for each of the kids? And like who prefers what and why like if you can't answer those questions, then you don't get to yammer on about how like her work is not that important. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't handle the work she does. You're not handling it. If you could handle it, you would be handling it. So sit down and shut up, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
it's true. In almost every home, there's a default parent. And these days it does feel like we're seeing more and more where that's not so gendered. It's not as specific. And I think that's great. My kiddo, when he was growing up, he was always like, well, first I want to be it was always something famous. I want to be a famous baseball player, even though he didn't play baseball, or I want to be a this, or I want to be a that. And then I'm going to be a stay at home parent. He had this vision of his life where he was like, I want to do what you do, but I want it to be my second act. And I'm like, well, I can't really blame him for that. I was in nonprofit for almost 15 years, right before I got to my second act of parenting and all of that jazz. I think it's great that we're seeing more of that, but there is
Mhm.
almost always a default caregiver in the home who carries just obscene amounts of weight without
Mhm.
realizing it. So I think it's that thing. If you have ever caught yourself saying things like, oh, I didn't even do that much today. Why am I so exhausted? You're probably not factoring in the mental load that can be just as tiring as running laps around a track. It is very, very real, the stress that it puts on your body and the amount of energy required to do that. If only it burned as many calories as running around the track, that'd be phenomenal. Uh, all right. So there's this myth that homeschooling equals flexible, cozy, slow mornings. And look, sometimes it might be like that. And that's wonderful for you. If you have managed to harness that and your kids like starting that way and you like starting that way and it works for your family and your life and your rhythm, spectacular. But that just isn't always the case. And plenty of times you're going to find yourself spread thin and juggling too much, juggling it all. I just think it's really important for us to take a minute and realize that is a myth that's, for better or worse, it's kind of a lie we've been fed, and we don't have to allow that to continue to dictate how we feel about homeschooling and whether or not we're getting it right. The reality is, you are likely the administrator or the principal, the curriculum director, the guidance counselor, the cafeteria manager, right? The therapist, the substitute teacher, the school nurse, the list goes on and on. And if you have a neurodiverse or disabled or a kiddo who requires some other type of additional support, you probably feel this quite deeply, even more so. Like, and that I say when you feel it quite deeply, I mean like deep in your weary
Mhm.
bones, you know? It's hard.
We've had this conversation before. I mean, we've talked about gifted a number of times, and it's this thing where like people are like, "Oh, you're just bragging because your child is gifted." I'm like, if you only knew what it is to, it's not a brag. It's not a brag moment. It is a lot because that level of extreme that exists on the academic side exists in a lot of other places too, and not always necessarily manifesting in a way that is like joy and cheer. It's a ride, let me tell you. It's a ride. It's part of the reason I'm so tired and dehydrated. Okay.
It was just like on a super like silly version of that. I was chopping onions like a half an hour before we were getting ready to podcast. And I was using the wet towel in front trick so that your eyes don't water too much. And it was working just fine. But then I moved and I was like, oh, that's bothering me a little bit. I'm going to have these crazy eyes for the podcast. And then I was like, oh, I probably should have just done what my kiddo does, which is wear swim goggles whenever he has to handle onions. And then I was like, I wonder how many people's kids actually bust out their swim goggles whenever they need to be anywhere close to an onion. Like it just, it bothers him sensory wise
Yeah.
so much that, yeah,
Do you,
safety goggles aren't going to cut it.
I don't know if I've ever specifically told you. I don't think I've brought it up on the podcast, but you know that my youngest went through a phase where he wore goggles for a year and a half everywhere he went. Have I ever told you this?
That. No, I don't think I knew that.
All right, I'm going to have to send you some photos. He had a collection of the summer swim goggles, construction goggles. He wore them to school. He wore them to the supermarket. He wore goggles everywhere. It was just his thing. He wore goggles. I don't know why. I don't know why it stopped. It was just a thing. He was maybe like, it was maybe when he was like 3, give or take. And it was about a solid year and a half. Every photo I have, he has goggles on. So yeah, I'll have to send you some. So if all of this is sounding familiar and you're like, yeah, I get it. I get it. The reality is you're not a weakling if this is exhausting the living daylights out of you. All of this is invisible labor, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's the work that happens behind the scenes. It's the mental load that no one sees. And it's the emotional management, which is so much that never gets clocked. It's just, it's a lot.
Well, no, absolutely. And then, like I said, it plays out even more in homeschool life. It's researching curriculum, comparing education philosophies and learning styles, reading reviews, adjusting when it doesn't work and constantly paying attention and keeping your thumb on what's happening so you can identify when it's not working before it's like really not working and then making the changes. It's making sure your kiddo has friends and regular opportunities to see those friends. It is much more challenging. It's important. It's definitely possible, but it's not as easy as just sending your kid off to a brick and mortar school. And everyone expects you to do that. They expect you, like you thought that when your kid got to school age, the headache of constantly scheduling play dates and being their social calendar monitor and manager was done, but it's not. It actually gets way worse. Managing all of that now is way worse than it was for my 3-year-old. And I thought he was a busy little kid.
Yeah. I mean, it is so much easier when you send them to school. You take them down to the end of the block and you're like, I have a 5-year-old. And they're like, great, we have a room full of them. Here, friends. I mean, that's not
Find
really
one you like.
socialization.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've talked about the fact that that's more forced association than socialization. And we've done episodes on socialization and homeschooling and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is they're not all going to be in one room. You're going to have to go find the 5-year-olds or the 10-year-olds or whatever is the case and organize and all that until your kiddo has a phone and can do. And then even once they have a phone, you still have to figure out, okay, where are you going? Who's going to be there? Are there going to be parents there? So yeah, it's a lot.
Yep.
Beyond that, you've got mapping transcripts for high school, keeping track of what's going on. You've got planning of field trips or outings or perhaps world schooling adventures or whatever the case might be. Finding co-ops, which can be so hard if you're secular and progressive. It's like, whew. And then the really fun part is if you can't find the friends or you can't find the co-op, what ends up happening sometimes, and I know it's happened to me, is then you have to build the thing. I've had to do that for the sanity and happiness of my own children sometimes, where the thing doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh, in my spare time, I will build and run that thing then. Okay, great.
Yep.
So good times. Managing extracurriculars. That's a fun one as well. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I was talking to my mom the other day and I was saying like, we were planning out the March Patreon dates for all of our live meetings and stuff. And I was saying to my mom, I go, I just tell Amanda to send me dates because Amanda's calendar is way busier than mine is. But I'm at a different point. My kids are older, so I'm not driving them to stuff. I'm not sitting there while they're at stuff. They're doing those things on their own. I just have to sometimes interrupt whatever we're doing and get a text from a kid who's like, I'm on my way home or whatever. Okay, great. So even when they're older, you're not managing it in the same way, but you're still keeping tabs on everything. I'm still making sure I know where they are and they're safe and they come home okay and all that good kind of stuff. So it still continues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like, again, if you're sitting here listening to all of this and you're like, yep, 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 I'm there. Like, all right, so what's your solution? We're not quite to the solution yet. I'm not sure there's an easy solution, but I think it is important to take a step back and really think about where it's coming from, because figuring out how you're going to address it for yourself is very much first figuring out where it's coming from. And a lot of times I think it comes from, and again, we've talked about this in other episodes, but the pressure to get it right. And especially if you're homeschooling, there's so much pressure to get it right, to prove to everyone else that you were right when you decided to do this, to not share when it's not going well. And they're like, oh, you should just take them to the school down the street. There's the fear of gaps. It's impossible to not worry about whether or not you've hit everything. Did you remember to cover all of the things? And are your kids where you want them?
Yeah. I was just having a conversation with my daughter the other day about gaps, and I don't even know how we got on the subject, how we got there, but somehow we did. Anyway, but I was saying to her, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a kid who went all through traditional education that doesn't have gaps. They were absent because they were sick. The teacher didn't get to it and the whole class didn't get it, which happens. It happens all the time. To get a credit for high school, the kind of standard is to have completed 80% of a textbook. So if you think about that, like, and you're in high school and you only finish 80% of all of your textbooks, you've got 20% gap, stuff that you just never got. I mean, I remember spending what felt like an infinite amount of time on trigonometry, on that sine, cosine, tangent, whatever they were. I to this day, I don't even know what they were. What were those things? I don't even know what they were. So I did it. I passed the class, but I don't know what they are. Chemistry was the same thing. joule of energy. What the hell is a joule of energy? I get it. Like it's a unit of energy, but what is it? I have no idea. And I did really, really good in chemistry because I was good at the math problems. It was the type of math that I can do. Some math I can't do at all. Geometry, nope, not happening. Trigonometry, clearly. But it was a lot of algebra, and I'm pretty good at algebra. That's the math that jives with the way my brain works. So it carried over to chemistry, but I don't know shit about chemistry. I was just good at doing the math problems and I could get the answers. So it's like, do I have gaps in my education? Hell yeah. So it's so standard that you're going to have that. But we as homeschool parents, it's all on us. So we feel, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure I mentioned this in a previous podcast as well, but for me, I was in 8th grade when my family moved states, and most of the stuff transferred pretty well. It was fine, but the state that we were living in did different history than the state we moved to. So for the 8th grade year, I got this weird hodgepodge of history, like a little bit of this and then a totally different thing of that. And then we moved states again for 9th grade. And in 9th grade, we started with the second half of American history. And I was like, cool. I mean, okay, but I have very little knowledge or understanding about the first half of American history. And it was really complicated and confusing when my high school teacher would always refer back to the early presidents. And I'm like, I don't really know. There's like a big chunk in there that I don't know. And I actually really don't care to memorize them. If I'm not having to do that for a class, like I don't actually care that much about who the ninth president of the United States was. It has very little bearing on anything I'm doing. It happens for all kinds of reasons. There are just gaps, and no one is like, no, you can't get a job in the real world unless you go back and learn presidents 1 through 29, and then we can move on. Thank you.
And solve this trigonometry problem with sine, cosine, and tangent that I still don't know what they are.
Exactly. And I think that other thing too is the fact that as homeschoolers, the division of labor between what primary caregiver is responsible for and what homeschool teacher is responsible for, it gets really blurry. Socialization, life skills, sports, clubs, social emotional skills, executive functioning skills, a lot of these get passed off to the traditional school system. Now, they might not do them well, but it's still this idea that it's at least partly their job. So if they don't do it well, you're going to pick up the slack at home. But now it's fully our job along with everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's overwhelming. It can be. Yeah. I mean, you brought up curriculum, which isn't particularly our jam over here, but we often think about the more academic side of homeschooling as planning lessons and keeping records and sitting there and teaching your kids how to find the square root of something. But the emotional side that you were just talking about as well, as someone who's parenting 3 teenagers, partnered with somebody who's
parenting. Walk in the park lately, right?
Right,
exactly. Walk in the park.
Total walk in the park. Yeah. I'm like a dead plant on a windowsill right now. Just try just pour water on me. Bring me back to life. Yeah, exactly. Right. And Amanda's parenting a tween. Yeah. The emotional regulation, puberty, all of it. Holy crap. I mean, just holy crap. It's so much. It's a lot. So you're regulating your kiddo's frustration when it comes to life stuff, when it comes to friend relationships, when it comes to family dynamics, when it comes to schoolwork. You've got all that stuff going on. You're managing potentially sibling dynamics, depending on what your family looks like, which is always interesting. You're together a lot when you homeschool. So it's a lot of together time, which I mean, it's one of the benefits of homeschooling in so many ways. I don't have siblings, so I don't know fully like what a sibling dynamic looks and feels like in a lot of ways, but my kids are close and they, for the most part, get along really, really well. I mean, they have their moments where they rub each other the wrong way, but for the most part, they get along really, really well. And it's because we've homeschooled. So it's not like a Debbie Downer episode where it's like, oh my gosh, it's all bad, but not everybody's kids do get along really, really well. And it depends, age gaps, personality differences, stuff like that. So that might be more enhanced in your homeschool life. And yeah, it's going to land on you. You're taking breaks throughout the day to manage meltdowns and all that good kind of stuff. You're staying calm when math explodes because you're the level-headed one with the fully developed frontal lobe, and that's your job. You're handling resistance to writing and trying like the 700th approach to figure out how to get your kid to write something. Sound familiar? Probably. You're supporting neurodivergent needs, which let me tell you, if you haven't gotten to puberty yet, puberty and neurodivergence is like an atomic bomb. So it's going to change. Even if you think you've got a system that works well for your kid, one of my kids completely changed, went from being the ultimate sensory seeker. I mean, I cannot even begin to explain to you the level of sensory seeking to being that level of sensory avoidant. And it was just like, what the heck just happened here? And I'm just along for this ride. And then in the meantime, you're a human being too. So you have your own shit going on. You have your own stuff where you're like, oh, now today I got my period and I just feel great, but everything around me is on fire. So, okay, we're just going to be dealing with that apparently.
Yeah, like true story, right? It's that thing. And all while trying to almost single-handedly make sure your kiddo is surrounded by healthy community and positive mentors who build them up and support them. It is a ton of work, none of which can easily be documented in your weekly planner or shown in your annual portfolio. So, a while back in an episode, we actually did an entire episode on kids and their kind of work in progress frontal lobes. But in a nutshell, kids' frontal lobes, they just aren't fully developed and they won't be fully developed until they're in their mid 20s. But guess whose is? Yours and mine. So we have to be the planner, the voice of reason, the calm port in the storm. It's freaking hard. And
Mm-hmm.
all of this means that co regulation takes effort. Even if there isn't a tangible worksheet to show for it, it still took effort to make happen. Staying calm when you really just want to scream about it or blow up or explode, it's work. It is work. Reframing, I hate this, into something constructive is labor. It is invisible labor, but it is labor. And making learning fun in the first place. We talk all the time about this. Create a culture of learning and teach them to love learning, a lifelong love of learning. All of these things, they're all great and they all make for great homeschooling, but it's a lot of freaking
Mm-hmm.
work. It's a lot of work.
I talk about creating a culture of learning and curiosity and stuff all the time on the podcast, but then also in the coaching sessions that I do. And it's funny because a lot of times I'll say to people, if you work in a corporate environment, they will bring in consultants or organizations to shift company culture. If the culture is really bad in a company, everybody's miserable, their turnover rate is really high, all that kind of stuff. And they spend a small fortune. And I usually use that as an example of how important culture is to an organization, but also then to your family. It's kind of the same concept. But the reality is, at the beginning part of that, I talked about the fact that they pay a small fortune for these companies to come in and do this because it's a hard work. And
Yeah.
so it's like, we're just doing it as part of our invisible labor. That's the way it works.
Yep. Just to
So yeah.
add that to the cooking and the cleaning and the, that there's always that thing, right? Of like how much it would cost to actually pay someone to do all
Yes.
of the jobs. Just add those corporate consultants in there too. No
Hmm.
problem.
All right. So you're managing all of that. You're shifting culture. You're doing all these things. When you're done doing that, and getting through the big feelings and all that, there's probably more decisions to be made. So some of the daily decisions that you may or may not even be conscious that you're managing sometimes are things like, what are we doing today? Are we doing enough? Should we be pivoting? Do we need a break? Is this a learning difference that I need to investigate? Am I teaching it the wrong way? Is my kid just bored? Are they disinterested? Teasing all of that out. Like, should I be testing my kids? How do I know if they're really learning? Are they behind? And there's this thing in the homeschool world, like there's no such thing as behind. We did a whole episode on that. Yes and no. Like there's there's where your kiddo's at and there's meeting your kiddo where they're at, and that's great. But then there is also, depending on what your long-term goals are, there sometimes are benchmarks that your kiddo needs to be at. And balancing that can be really hard, especially when you go into a Facebook group and you say, I think my kid's behind on this. And half the people are like, there's no such thing as behind. And then the other half of the people are like, buy this curriculum. And you're like, now I don't know what the hell to do. So yeah, Should we join that co-op that I was looking at? Is it too much to add that to our schedule? Will my kids like it? Will the environment be good? Are the classes good? Well, they have classes that two of my kids would like, but one of my kids, there's nothing that that kid's going to be interested in. So now what do I do? Are they on screens too much? Now I'm starting to freak out. Maybe they're on screens too much. Maybe I need to limit that. Well, how do I do that? Then they're going to fight more and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are we socializing enough? So there's all of these things that are weighing on us often.
Well, no, absolutely. And for better or worse, traditional school, whether that's some kind of online virtual school or they're going off to a brick and mortar school, it removes hundreds of daily decisions, hours and hours of time. All of those decisions are decided by someone else. We don't generally have that luxury. Even if we are picking individual classes to put them in or we're outsourcing things, we're still constantly evaluating, do I like this course? Is it doing what we need? Should I find a different teacher? Should I find a different provider? Should I this? Should I that? Like, it's just not the same as like, well, this is our school and that's what we have. Homeschooling means that you absorb all of those decisions. You don't get to rely on the school providing them lunch. You get to rely on you making sure that there's lunch. And it's cumulative. It happens day after day, and the weight of it gets heavier and heavier day after day. And oftentimes we feel like we can't admit that it is overwhelming or exhausting because, again, we have this little voice in our head. It's like, well, we chose this. And as soon as we complain, people are going to tell us, like, well, you chose it. You can make a different choice. And I was like, well, I don't want to make a different choice. I just need to vent a little.
I'm just having a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just need a little bit of support. And I'm like, just, yeah, exactly. But we will say, and we have said this many times over many podcasts, but if you're just coming to us or you're new, we do fully acknowledge that there are absolutely homeschooling adults out there who didn't get to choose homeschooling. They came to it as a last resort for any number of reasons. And even still, you are allowed to feel overwhelmed and exhausted because this is where you're at and you're just trying to find the best way to move forward. When you are homeschooling, you don't have coworker validation. There's no staff meeting or teacher lounge to go hang out in and vent.
That's not true. We have a teacher lounge on Patreon. You can come hang out. We have a Q&A. We have our social. So we have our own version of a teacher lounge.
We do. And virtual is good, but I gotta say, I'm very fortunate because I have some homeschool moms and we see each other every Friday. And it is literally like a 2 to 3 hour just vent and
nice.
rant and bitch session. I'm not positive I could do it as well. And most of the times when I'm not doing it as well, it's because we haven't been consistently meeting on Friday for whatever reason. And yeah, I really notice a big difference in how well I'm handling things when I don't have those ladies to vent to. And also, there's no quality built-in feedback system. You definitely get some feedback from your kids and you definitely get some feedback from whoever your parenting partner is or nosy relatives, but that's not quality, nor is it generally helpful. And if something goes wrong, a lot of times it feels personal. You made all of those decisions and you made the best decision that you could, but when it involves your kids and something goes wrong, we can't help but oftentimes take it personally. And it doesn't need to be. It's not that much of a direct line, but it's hard. And being the kind of quote unquote only one, it really can feel lonely and isolating and just extra exhausting.
Yeah. I think too, in my case, my parenting partner and I parent very, very differently. And like, if I have to, right? Like you were saying before about to use your parenting partner know the pediatrician's phone number. And I'm like, we got into a car accident one time, me and the three kids, and it was near the house. And I called him and said, hey, I need you to come. I just got into this car accident, whatever. Somebody had T-boned us and my car got totaled and all this stuff. So I'm like with the police and doing the thing and the kids are in the ambulance. And I said, you go with the kids. I'm handling. And the ambulance person who filled out the report brings me the report to review and stuff at the end. And he had given them the information and not one child's birthday was correct on the form. And I was like, like, seriously, dude. But I mean, I married a workaholic. It's not terribly surprising that he's like, how many kids do we have again? So I had a situation recently where I had to disappoint my kids about something. It goes back to the residency cards we were talking about earlier. My two boys were trying to go to the UK for something, which for us, you have to understand if you've never lived in Europe or you've not traveled in Europe, to go to the UK from Portugal, it's literally like getting an Uber. It's like $15 to get a ticket to fly to the UK. It's a day trip, really. And
Yeah.
so they had an event that they really wanted to go to and they were super excited about. And because the residency cards hadn't come, there was a risk that they might not get back into the country. And it's like, you can try it, but it's not guaranteed. And I'm like, what am I going to do if they get stuck in a different country? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I waited so long to make a decision because I didn't want to disappoint them. Like they were so excited for this thing and I was excited for them and I wanted them to have this opportunity and to go do this thing. And they were looking forward to it. And for my husband, he'd be like, you just have to tell them they can't go. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but
it's not
like,
your fault, but like you feel like it's, like,
right.
well,
It's been over
yeah,
2
like,
weeks and I still am sad that they, and I mean, I get it. It's a very first world problem. I mean, half the world is exploding right now and there's mothers burying their children. I know this is a very first world problem, but it's like when it's on you, you have like this, when I feel, yeah, it's not fun. I
no,
get it. It's a very spoiled. It's like, I have a cousin who says like, it's a champagne problem and it is, but like, you know, still it's my reality and I'm bummed. It was sad. Like I didn't want to have to disappoint them. So anyway, yeah. I mean, the other thing too, when you're homeschooling, I feel like is sometimes when your kiddos are struggling, you're a hair away from being like, I never should have done this. I'm not equipped to do this. I've made all the wrong decisions. And then they have a struggle and you're like, that's the clincher. I've completely screwed this up. It's all wrong and I've screwed this up and there's no going back, right? And we promise you 99.9% of the time that is not the case. It's just you
yeah,
just need to take a step back, reevaluate, use that fully formed frontal lobe of yours, tweak something, but you can do that. But when you're so overwhelmed because you're in this all day, every day, and you're in decision fatigue mode, it can be hard to kind of do that. I've
yeah,
mentioned in last week's episode and today that I've had a bit of a rough patch. I mean, I even just sent something really basic to Amanda and was like, can you just check that I didn't screw this up? Because my brain isn't working the way it usually does because I'm tired and stressed and overwhelmed. And so you have to give yourself a little slack when you're in those positions.
absolutely.
So I think too, we also end up, like you mentioned, in this position where we have to feel like we have to defend our decision to homeschool or kind of ward off the attacks that are coming. And so then if your kiddo is struggling with something or something isn't going swimmingly, it's like, well, now I either have to defend all of that or fake it till I make it and polish it all and make it look okay and put out this image that's there. And that gets really, really hard. And so it can be hard. It can be lonely to hold this vision on your own of like, I have this dream for what education can be. I have this dream of having this experience with my child or children. And it's not working the way I thought it would, or we're having a rough week, month, semester, whatever, it can be all of the above. And it can be
Yeah.
really, really tough. I will say though, I'll go back to what Amanda was saying before about the hundreds of decisions that get outsourced to school and stuff like that. I described my school experience with my kids as being on a deranged version of The Amazing Race. It was awful. And I've never even really watched The Amazing Race. I've just seen like clips of it online. But my understanding, right, is they give you like these wacky challenges and you have a time to get them done and stuff like that. And so I had 3 kids in 3 different grades. At the end, 2 of them were in the public school and one of them was still in preschool. And you'd get this thing. I need 40 paper plates by tomorrow. I need 7 green pipe cleaners by Tuesday. There was always something that needed to be done. And I felt like I was completing these random challenges. So yes, there's stress in that world too, right? And it's not in your control at all because you just get this thing home in a backpack that's like, oh, you have to do this thing. So there's stress in both worlds. But to what we said at the beginning, it does feel maybe a little bit heavier just because of the stakes of homeschooling. It's not 7 green pipe cleaners. It's, will my child succeed in the adult world? It's a very different situation between those two things. So, yeah. Okay, so more to say about invisible labor, but real quick before we do, we've mentioned a couple of times that we have an online community, we have meetings, we have all sorts of stuff. One of the things that we do is we host a book club, and we're finishing up our current book as we speak, and we're getting ready to start our new book. So we wanted to take a minute just to tell you what that book will be in case you'd like to join us. And I get that the irony of this is like really up there. We're talking about invisible labor and feeling overwhelmed. And you're like, and now you want me to read a book and show up to a meeting and talk to you about my reading like I'm in ninth grade literature. No, that is not how our book club runs. We have people in book club who've never even touched the book. So you can
Yep.
come. We talk about the book. I mean, we've had book club meetings where Amanda and I are the only people who've read the book. It doesn't happen often. We usually do have a couple of people who will read or listen to it.
Yeah.
So we do typically have a few other people to chat with, but we've had meetings where we're the only two people that read the book. We'll tell you what was in the book. Zero judgment. We have people that show up nursing babies, chopping vegetables for dinner, on the treadmill. I mean, you name it, it is what it is. And it's amazing. So feel free, come, show up, listen to the conversation, be a fly on the wall, participate in the conversation, put your camera on, don't put your camera on, but it just feels good to get together with some other people who know what's what. So, official announcement, our next book is going to be How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And this book has been around for forever, and yet somehow I've never read it. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish. I hope I pronounced that properly. So yeah, that book will start. Hold on. Aw. So we start that one on my birthday. So March 23rd. It's my birthday. So yeah, come read the book, don't read the book, but come and we'll have some fun. So we'll put a link in the show notes and there's a coupon code and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, come hang with us. And we have other live meetings. We have a homeschool Q&A. We have a meeting about homeschooling neurodivergent kids. We have a social. There's a unit study that comes out every month. There's chats. So if you're having a rough day and you're just like, I am having a day and I need to talk to people who will get it, that's there. There's a ton of stuff over there. So lots of support.
All right. So we're talking about the invisible labor that goes into being a parent or caregiver and also being the homeschooling adult. But the thing is, as if those things are not enough, a lot of homeschool caregivers or parents are also working. I am fortunate, I guess, to be in a position where I'm disabled and I can't work a full time job. I'm literally not physically able to. But that doesn't mean that I don't work a couple of different part-time jobs. And there are plenty of people that we talk to or we see in groups who are working full-time jobs. And yes, it's hard, but there are absolutely ways to homeschool when you're working full-time. But it's hard because you do have to be able to switch between professional brain and homeschool brain and this constant back and forth. We talked last week about putting on different hats, but this is even to a greater degree than that, right? You're not going to talk to your teen the same way you talk to your tween. You never get to fully be off. You never get to switch off, especially with smartphones and American work expectations. It's so hard to just be like, well, this is my break, or I scheduled this time is busy on my calendar so I can work with the kids. You have to kind of always be listening for the chime on the computer that someone's trying to video call you, or you're checking email in the evening, even though you really wish you weren't because you need some downtime for yourself. And the guilt of not doing all of the things, it goes both ways. Like,
Mhm.
I was feeling so good at myself, so proud of myself yesterday because I got a whole bunch of things done. And then this morning I was like, I woke up and I was ready to like, all right, I'm going to make this work. And then there were new things from Megan that I was like, I don't have time to do that today. I have other things that I have to do. And so I'm going to take care of those. And I took care of some family stuff and I did homeschooling and now I'm here recording. And no lie, in the back of my mind, there's this email that I need to send about a St. Patrick's Day event that I'm hosting. And I haven't done it. And it's been on my to-do list since like last Thursday and I didn't get it out. And it's just there bothering me of like, you really need to take care of this. I'm like, I know it has to get done today. It cannot wait any longer. Like, it's hard. It's
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I used to describe it to my husband when I was working full time. This was before I was even homeschooling, but I was working full time. And then we had three really small kids, all close in age. And I used to say to him, I feel like I'm failing at everything. because I feel like I'm dropping the ball at work because I'm focusing on the kids. And then when I'm with the kids, I'm not with them enough in my mind and not fully with them because, to your point, I'm checking my phone or I get a phone call or something like that, or I have to travel. And I was like, do you know what it is to go through life feeling like you're failing at everything that you do because you can't give anything your full attention? And he doesn't, because he just works. He was like, how many kids do we have? And what are their birthdays? So I'm like, no, but it was really, really hard. And so, yeah, I mean, I've restored some of that balance by making some changes, and my kids have gotten older and all that kind of stuff. But it was really hard for a really long time. Yeah. So, okay. So, talk about making some changes. How do you know if it's too much and you need to make changes, or is it just the season of life that you're in right now and you need to kind of muddle through and just fake it till you make it, like Amanda said? So, some signs that you might be carrying too much. I feel like some of these also might be signs you're in perimenopause. I'm not sure, right? Starting with irritability,
Yeah,
snapping
true
over
story.
small things. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah. But I think some of these are bigger, right? Like dreading the school day. If you're dreading the school day, oh my gosh, let's talk. Come, let's talk. We can help you make some changes because you shouldn't be dreading the school day. And
At least
I,
not
I don't
every
mean,
day. I mean, like, let's be real.
right.
There are definitely days where I dread. Mondays are hard for us. It just so
Yeah.
happens my kiddo picked a lot of online classes on Monday, and plus he wants to get a bunch of his work knocked out on Monday so that the week gets easier. I think we all kind of dread Monday, but
Mm.
in our home, it's a season because the classes that he wanted just happened to be offered on Monday, and we ended up with a bunch. And it was like, so we know if we make this choice to take these classes right now, it's going to make things. And I was like, yeah, okay, and we know this and we're going into it.
Hmm.
It's okay to dread occasional school days or even to
Yeah.
have a rhythm that involves a really crappy day that you just knew when you committed to it. This is going to suck. And
Yeah.
but there's an end. There's a date that this ends and it gets easier. And so, yeah,
Yeah. But if not, then
yeah.
tweak. We talk, we
Hmm.
tweak. It's okay. Constantly get second guessing yourself to the point that you're like paralyzed by these things. We can make changes that can be fixed or that can be alleviated or improved. Okay. If you're newer or you're entering a new phase, like maybe let's say you're entering middle school or high school or something, and you are just obsessing over curriculum, you need community. You need some help. And when I say community, I do not mean a Facebook group of random people. Okay. Right. We see some horrific advice in Facebook groups where we're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is happening. You
Like
need a trusted.
that's a long list of recommendations, none of which are secular in this
Yeah.
secular only group. How very interesting.
Amanda, it's secular once you skip all the Jesus stuff, right? That's
Oh,
how it
right,
works.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I'm like, I can't. I can't. Ugh. But yeah, if you're completely paralyzed about curriculum all the time, and you're changing like once a month all the
Mhm.
time, come. You need support. You need help. You need community. We can help. Our community can help. Lots of people can help. Maybe you can find some people locally, but we've got it. If you don't have it, we've got it. If you're fantasizing about outsourcing everything all the time, you probably have too much on your plate. And there's nothing wrong with outsourcing. We
No.
both outsource a ton of stuff. So that might be actually a great solution for you. It's okay. None of those things means that you're bad at homeschooling. You should quit homeschooling. You made a mistake when you decided to homeschool. None of the above. It means you're human and you're the primary parent, and it's a lot,
Yeah,
right? It's a lot.
it is. But as it turns out, we really like humans around here. So it works out nicely. I mean, I like unicorns too. There are a few other animals out there. Werewolves. I'm particularly into werewolves these days. Megan likes her smutty hockey players. But we like humans. Come be an imperfect human with us.
Yeah.
All right. So, what can be done about all of this weight in general? These are not answers, but maybe they are things, parts of a solution. So, reduce decision making whenever possible. Pre plan some aspect of your life, maybe a month at a time. Maybe choose fewer subjects per day. Create default rhythms and implement more systems. Find the things, again, whether that's systems or more general rhythms that work, that give you kind of a guide, some pacing, and implement them where possible so that you don't have to make quite so many decisions and things just kind of flow a little bit better.
Yeah. We like to build in autopilot days in our house. It's so funny because you were talking about Mondays. Mondays for us traditionally have been a day of rest. So we've had that during multiple seasons of our lives where like the weekends are busy. My kids are off doing stuff and we're all done by Monday. And so in the traditional world, it's like Monday's the day we get back to the thing. Not in our house. Today, we're recording this on a Monday. Today was a very quote unquote lazy day. I mean, I worked a ton on the unit study, but I was in bed with music on and a blankie. It was a very relaxing way to get it done. Two of my three kids just kind of had a very chill day because they had a bonkers weekend where they were all over the place doing all kinds of stuff. So it's okay to have those days and you can build that in. If your weekends are always bananas with sports and activities and family stuff and whatever, make Monday a lazy day. It's totally okay. You're allowed to. You can have documentary day or movie day. You can have independent projects day. You can have a skill maintenance day. You can do whatever you want. You can have noodle days, which in our house, noodle is a verb in my house where I'll literally be like, okay, you guys, I'm going to go noodle for a little while, but if you need me, I'm available. So you could totally have noodle days where everybody's reading a book and working on a craft or whatever. And it's a low output day, but that's okay because it's restorative, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably do that on Mondays. Like I said, some of it's outside of our control because of classes my kiddo
Yeah.
really want to take. For us, Fridays is our big one because Friday morning, it's kind of like wrap up anything that we need to. And then by noon, it's lunch and then friend time the rest of the
Hmm.
day. That's it. That's our Friday. You go hang out with your friends and I go vent with my mom friends, the homeschool moms that we get together. It's important to have some of those autopilot days and you just know that you have that to look forward to, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. And again, that's a system or a rhythm.
Hmm.
You can throw one in whenever you need it. But if you know for sure that this day every week is going to run this way, that removes a lot of those decisions. You're like, do we just stop because this isn't working? We're having a bad day? Should we just shelve this until another day? Should we try to get in touch with our friends and see if they're free? You've removed all of that by just kind of having a set day.
Hmm.
I just mentioned it because our Mondays are insane because of it, but you can absolutely outsource. You can do online classes, co-ops, play groups, tutors, time with mentors, programs at the library. There are so many things. And yes, there's definitely privilege wrapped up in being able to pay for these kinds of things, but there are also so many free options out there that are great and can give you that little bit of a break. Maybe you can't afford to pay for an online class, but you can 100% use Emily's Wonder Lab for science for free online or on your TV, your smart TV. You can use crash course classes. They've got loads of great ones and they're free. There are free options. And like I said, check out your library. We are absolutely doing things at our library. We've got a Dungeons and Dragons afternoon gameplay, and they just had a big Pokemon event at the library. There are lots of things that you can do. And depending on the program, some of them do require that you drop your kiddo off and that you
Oh.
aren't. Megan's like, my library did not have that. My library does. It's been hard to get used to this. Like, okay, well, you can bring your kid to the teen center, but you cannot enter the teen center. And on the one hand, I very much appreciate that they have this very strict rule about adults not being allowed to hang out in the teen center. It makes it easier for me to be okay with the idea of being like,
Hmm.
and here you go into the teen center. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I had too many of those when my kids were young, but you'd have been speaking my language. Now my kids go off and do their own thing because they're older. But yeah, now I'm happy when they come home and talk to me because I'm in the opposite phase of life, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. The other thing too is just kind of giving yourself permission to lower the stakes. I think sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves that every single activity we do needs to be rooted in this deep lesson and this transformational experience. And yes, on the whole, that's a great way to homeschool and it's great to aspire to. But sometimes you can just transfer information and then be done. It's okay if you need to do that some days. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you have failed. It's all right. You do not need to entertain your kids every moment of the day. We did a whole episode on why being bored is an amazing thing. Go check it out if you haven't listened to it. It is totally okay. And I'm saying this as much to you as I am to myself. It is totally okay for you to set them free and go lay down and read a book or work on something that's meaningful to you, because it took me, I'm getting better at it, but I was like, there's no way I can do that. Like, I literally, if my kids were awake, I was pouring 110% of what existed in me into them and just collapsing at the end of the day. So it's taken a lot of work to get to that point, and I'm still working on it, but it's okay. They're allowed to be bored. It's great. It works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know we've mentioned it throughout the episode. It's kind of been a constant theme, but really try to find community. You can build community if that's the point that you're at and you have that energy reserve, or you're just like, well, I need in-person community and it's not here. And that's the only way I know how to do it. But there are a lot of ways that you can find community. I feel like the pandemic, for all of the many awful things that it did and it brought to us, it showed a lot of people that you can do a lot of things and you can find a lot of community. You can get involved in community service. You can make real lifelong friends. There are lots of ways to find community. And it just makes so much of a difference to be able to spend time with people who understand homeschool.
Mhm.
It is just so different. One of my best friends doesn't homeschool. She's always like, I'm amazed that you can do it. I'm amazed at what you're doing with your kiddo. It's all amazing. I could never do it, even though my kiddo would really benefit from it. He would hate it. I would hate it. It would be terrible. And I love talking to her. I love hanging out with her, but she's not the person I can talk to about homeschool struggles and challenges, because
Mm-mm.
she just, she doesn't have the foundational knowledge or the framework. And so you can find good Facebook groups. Like, obviously, tread carefully there. Facebook is a really challenging place. It's extra challenging after this last presidential election, I feel like. We have our Patreon. We have asynchronous chats. There's chats in there where you can just more general, kind of like a mini Facebook group. But we have our live meetings too. We've talked about it. Like, maybe you can find some other live book club. I'm sure there are other ones out there, parenting book clubs or something like that. That's how we initially met, was through a homeschooling parenting book club. It's gone defunct, which is why we decided, like, well, let's try to start our own. But maybe you can find another one. It is so important to find people that you can actually talk to, that
Mhm.
actually get you. Let's all work to normalize saying, this week was a lot. I had a really shitty week. Like, tell me something good. Tell me a funny story, because I just had a really shitty week and I just need you to distract me. Or maybe
Yeah.
you just show up and say, I have a beer. So you talk, because that's what I did at our last live. I was like, I have a beer and I'm going to finish it. And once I'm finished with it, I might have more to weigh in on. But like,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
I I did that when we were in the process of getting ready to move to Europe. I had a lot of moments because it was a really big move, but I literally called my best friend, who's been my best friend for like decades, and I was already hysterical crying when I called her, and I go, "I just need you to tell me that this is going to work and it's going to be okay." And I brain dumped everything that was on me, and she was like, "It's going to work and it's going to be okay." And I was like, "Okay." It's so stupid because I told her exactly what I needed, and so it's like, you'd think, oh, okay, I could have just said it to myself then, but no, it didn't work the same. I
yep,
needed her to say it. I wanted to
yep,
have someone else listen to me and then for her to say it. And I felt so much better by the time I was done.
yep.
So yeah, it works. It definitely pays to have community. Oh my goodness. All right. So our end of episode mantra is: invisible doesn't mean insignificant. The invisible labor you put into homeschooling is building something real, even if no one hands you a gold star for it. We will hand you a gold star. We'll hand you a virtual gold star. Come hang
Yeah,
out with us. We've got you. It's that thing, right? When you go to somebody and they say, "Do you want advice or do you want me to listen?" And they give
yep,
you that choice up front. Whichever of those two things you want, we got you. You need somebody to listen or you want advice, either way, we can cover you and then we'll give you a gold star at the end. So yeah, come hang out with us and you're doing an amazing job. It feels exhausting and it feels like a lot because it is. And so really our episodes, we try to always say like, we love homeschooling and we wouldn't change anything. And it's true. But at some point we have to acknowledge it's also really tiring and it's also a lot. And if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. It's okay. It's okay. It's a lot, but it's going to be good. And if it's not good, we can help you make it good. So either way, it'll be good. All right, friends. In the meantime, happy homeschooling.
Yeah. Have a great one.